Hello and welcome to the Daily Atheist Morning Show. It is Tuesday, the 25th of August, 2020. I am your host, the amazing Super Chris. I've got one of my favoriteest hosts in the entire universe co-host with me today. That is Andy Hall. He'll be joining me in just a second. And we have got comic artist, I believe. I'm not sure how, maybe I said it wrong. Jonathan Burrello will be joining us in just a moment, right after this.
Oh my God. Jesus. Do you like it?
Sometimes you can choose to not be a dick. Yes. Thank you.
I can't take it off. I can't take it off. Like, take it off. I can't. Take it off. I can't take it off. Like, take it off. I can't.
All right. Thank you, Miss Lola Ray, for that. Hello, Andy. This is my co-host, Andy Hall. How are you doing, Andy?
Socially awkward as ever.
As ever. No. Matter of fact, I don't pay her for it either. She actually sent me the thing, and I said I'm going to make a commercial out of it, and then she let me. So that's kind of the thing. So you guys know Andy. He is a writer over at Pathos from the Laughing in Disbelief blog. He's also, you can find him over at, what is it, Laughing at Twitter? It's a little different at Twitter, isn't it?
What's it called? Purgatory, right here.
They can't see that. Laugh Purgatory.
They can't see that. It's Laugh Purgatory.
No. It's Laugh Purgatory. You don't watch the show, do you, Andy?
I'm watching it right now. I only have a tentative grasp. on anything I do at any one time.
Understood. We have got Jonathan Burrello joining us this morning. He is a comic artist, and he is the host of BigInsaneHappy.com. How are you doing this morning?
Going on? Yes, good.
I don't hear you, Jonathan.
You don't hear Jonathan. I hear Jonathan.
You can't?
I don't hear Andy anymore.
You don't hear Andy anymore? Well, you might be at a nut plus for not hearing Andy, but I can hear all of us.
There we go.
We'll just practice funny faces for the next until I don't know.
No, yeah, everybody else heard you. It was just me. Whenever I clicked on Jonathan, everything went so perfectly this morning. People, if you're watching, you know how it is every day. The tech gremlins are just dangling off the ship this morning. Everything went perfectly, so I couldn't help but subconsciously perhaps screw it up by turning off my own headset whenever I asked our guest to speak. So good morning, Jonathan. How are you doing?
Good morning, Chris. I'm doing great.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. It's nice to have you with us this morning. Is it early for you? Are you a morning person or?
It's 9 o'clock. This is a good time for me.
Awesome. Perfect. I want to say good morning to everybody in the chat, the damnation. I hope you're all doing wonderful. Let me see who all's here this morning. I noticed Critical Crippled. Good morning, Dave. Nice to have you with us. Brainbug, Cindy Plaza, Easy Some Works. Hey, brother. Good morning. Nice to have you with us. He's going to be on our show tomorrow talking about some cannabis stuff. We've also got Doc Fearsome in the chat. Good morning, Doc Fearsome, and Andy, of course. Good morning, Andy. Grumpy old dude, brother. How you doing? How's Amber? I hope you guys are doing okay and staying cootie free. So, also, we've got a lot of people who watch on Facebook, and I want to make sure and say hello to we like 10 different Facebook pages and groups. Good morning, everybody. And that YouTube reviewer who has to go back every day and watch my videos before they can get monetized. Good morning to you. We also have the Daily Atheist Morning Show podcast streaming live. So good morning to everybody listening there. Gosh, man, we got a lot of stuff going on to get through every morning. So good morning, Andy. How you been doing, brother? I see you've got your red, what is that? It's not a MAGA hat.
It's not a MAGA hat. It is, I found this somewhere. I found this, I believe when I was living with my ex-wife, when I was still married. And it is, I guess, some kind of charity. See, look, it has a heart on it. It has a heart. So it isn't a MAGA hat. No, you might notice that it has a heart. So that means it can't be Republican related whatsoever. And there's a semblance of a brain in the hat. So you definitely know it's not GOP related.
Obviously. Good point. Good morning, Trina, Phil Lister, KCA Randy. Guys, it's wonderful to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. So, Andy, you want to introduce me to your buddy here?
I'm going to do what I do, which is the the laziest thing possible. I'm going to read Mr. Burrello's bio from his site on Pathos, because we are Pathos buddies. We're Pathos brothers, maybe? I don't know what this is.
I don't know what the relationship is. You can do an abbreviated bio, by the way, because I think it's a little long, if I remember correctly.
Well, this is your Pathos bio is much shorter than your other bio.
Oh, then do that one.
Otherwise, I'll do this. Jonathan Burrello is a skeptic comic creator on a mission to make people smile at the squishy animals that live in his head. We'll just cut it like that. How's that?
Update that. That's awful. That's a terrible bio.
You know, my bio's worse. We should hire people, like real people, with letters behind their names.
Yeah.
To be like writing our bios, comedians' bios.
You're a man of letters. Why don't you do a bio for me?
Yeah.
I could write a bio for you. You know, I'd have to like think about it. But you know, Jonathan writes Blinky and Sal. This is how I knew him. How would you describe your comic, your Blinky and Sal?
I think it's just a separation of my like different psychological aspects of myself into like 2 and kind of 3 characters, and just sort of just. I don't know, it's just cartoon. Look, check it out. Oh, I don't want to reveal too much.
Right. Well, you know, you write a lot. There's a lot of social commentary there. You have an atheist bat. Is that a bat?
Yeah, the guy in the middle is a bat. It's unclear if he's an atheist or not. He's just sort of like not sure about anything. And I think that's, I'm sometimes Blinky and I'm sometimes Sal, who's the more staunch atheist. And then there's the religious zealot who I feel is who I used to be. So it's an extremely like grotesquely personal cartoon.
Grotesquely personal. That's fantastic.
That's good. Hey, Jonathan, do you want to tell us real quick about how were you raised? What kind of faith were you raised under, and how you became an atheist?
So we were very unusual for Italian Americans. We were Pentecostal, weirdly, growing up. And then we switched to Free Methodist when I was 10. And then I was in Bible colleges until graduation. And then somewhere when I was driving from Los Angeles to New York in preparation to leave the country to go teach in South Korea, I kind of became just not really believing in any of this. So sort of just fell off along the drive, looking at the mountains and stuff.
Really?
I have to ask you, what's the difference between Bible colleges and regular colleges?
Actually had a post about this. Someone had said, I think it was on Twitter or something, that like Bible college is just expensive youth group. Like, that is a very accurate description.
So there's a lot of shame-filled masturbation going on.
No, we had to sign like a covenant, you know, to be in the school. And I remember, I forget which one, because I went to 2. One of them was they asked you how many times a day or how many times a week did you masturbate? And it was like every day, every other day. And then my favorite answer, 0 to 3 times.
0 to 3.
And I love the idea that like they're giving you an out. You're like, we know none of you are really doing it 0, but like you want to feel like you could be 0 and we're not judging you for that. Right. But then I also like the idea of that some guy, maybe he just never masturbated and he's like, oh, this is terrible. They're lumping me in with the people who do it 3 times a week, these animals.
Filthy animals. What is your...
Like.
I have to ask more about this masturbation.
Yeah, I knew when it came to self-pleasure, you
here we go.
would want to know more. Carry on.
What did I answer? I will tell you. No.
So
Mine wasn't on there.
Was this in the application or the orientation? How does this work out?
I don't remember now. I remember there was like several like meetings and things, and there's all these. I think it's after you get to the school. They give you all this paperwork and like, these are the rules of the school, you know, no dancing, no looking at a knee and whatever. I don't know, weird stuff like that. And then you're like, okay, fine, whatever. Yeah, check. Yeah, I'll do that. But yeah, that was probably the most interesting one. I think the big difference between like a regular college and a Christian college is instead of people just hooking up, at parties. I mean, that did happen, but not so often because there's a lot of, stigma about that there. But I remember like men would go to the woman that they had a crush on and say, God came to me in a dream and said that we're supposed to be together, and then they'd date and then they'd break up in like a couple weeks. But it was always ring by spring was the mantra. You're like, you got to get your ring by spring so you can be married by sophomore year. It was sort of like because everyone's got the same sexual tension, but you can't do premarital sex in good conscience. So everyone just gets married when they're 19 and then divorced by 24.
Yeah, right.
Like it's a broken world. It's terrible.
What was your major in Bible college?
Communications.
Communicating. Well, you are communicating, sir, and you're doing it quite well.
Yeah. You taught me how to speak in tongues.
What did your family think about it when you left the faith? How'd that work out for them?
I don't know. They're still not loving it.
I guess I should ask, how long has that been? What kind of time frame were we looking at?
Less than 10 years ago.
One of those.
So
yeah.
Just a baby, really. And just sort of.
Yeah. The family, the more into it, the faith your family is, sometimes the longer it takes for. Totally get it. Yeah.
My dad became a pastor right around the time that I became an atheist.
Wow.
Great timing.
That must have made family get-together somewhat awkward.
It's made them more intermittent.
I'm sure. Is he still a Methodist? Is he still a Free Methodist, or?
Yeah, I believe so. I haven't been to, like, we have a thing. I've never gone to one of his church services, and he's never gone to one of my comedy shows, and I feel like that's probably for the best because I don't think we'd enjoy each other's material that much.
Right.
So,
were you drawing comics when you were a believer?
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, since I was a kid, since I was very, very little.
Were they Jesus related comics?
Not really. I don't know. This was like the thing. Every time I would draw something, my grandmother would say, "This is straight from the pit of hell," which is actually the title of my first comics collection, "Straight from the Pit of Hell." I got the title from everything my grandmother ever told me about my own artwork. She would always ask me, "Why don't you draw happy things, like a rabbit holding a flower, or a sunny day, or something, or draw like Jesus on the cross, something nice," And I didn't really do that much, but when I did, it would feel disingenuous. Like I don't know. I feel like this is just. It felt weird to draw like the religious iconography because it had been so associated in my mind with merchandise,
right?
So it felt like it wasn't art, and it felt like I didn't know the words at the time, but like looking back, it's like this feels manipulative and not authentic.
It's funny how you knew that even as a kid.
I don't know exactly what I thought, but I know I didn't like doing it. And there was something like, this doesn't feel natural to me to do. And I don't like just doing this because people tell me this would be good if I did it.
Right. If there's a common denominator from my friends and the people I like to hang around with, we don't like to be bullied. We don't like being told what to do.
It's America.
I'm going to drop a link to your website in the chat here. So there's a link down below to Jonathan's website if you want to go check out his website and his art. But I'm going to go ahead and drop it here for you guys as we go along occasionally. So to let y'all know.
Yeah, now you're not just doing one comic. You've done a variety of different comics over your career. You're doing Barb right now?
Yeah, right now I'm still doing Blinky Sal. I took a hiatus for a little while because I felt like it was too, I don't know, psychologically draining.
Yeah.
Because I was putting so much of myself into it, and I felt like, okay, so now it's like Robert Crumb. You have no secrets. Everything is out. And I'm like, I don't know. And it was just, I hated living in that world and being so like into myself so much. And it felt, I don't know, again, not good. So I said I should stop. And I wanted to focus on something that was just more adventure and fun and monsters.
Yeah.
But then that turned into like political commentary too. I couldn't get away from it. It's like, well.
We can't escape ourselves ultimately. How sad is that, right?
We're always going to be there.
Yeah. Until we're
How
not,
long-
and no one's gonna care, and you're not gonna care after that point.
Nah.
Hello, which one of these came first? I'm looking at your website. You've got several different cartoons. Let's see. Soggy, Secret Keys, Blinky and Sal is the
probably
one,
the oldest one.
the oldest one, and then
That's the one I did
and
in like,
Barb.
elementary
Okay.
school. Elementary school, I did Soggy.
Awesome. I can't draw a thing. Anybody who can draw just blows me away. We've got another artist on the show, John Hammond, who comes on. He does what do you call them? Comic books. He's got a comic book series he's building. It just blows me away the fact that anybody can draw. And then how do you get it into the computer? Do you draw it on the? I just all blows me away. It's a mystery. It's like magic art.
It's scanners.
But without the
Cronenberg
explosion, you see what I did there?
Cronenberg.
The whole Cronen. Yeah, see, you know what I'm talking about there.
Just like that. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Just
I'm a
like
movie nerd.
that.
You pray it into the computer. I understand.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing the so what made you decide to turn it? Was it just that, like you said, it just kind of became as it was to turn you into an activist against your old faith? Catholic, I'm presuming, right? Did I miss it? Did you say you were Catholic?
Methodist, free rent.
I'm sorry, Methodist. Bad. my bad.
Pentecostal and Free Methodist. I don't know. I don't look at it as because I'm still friends with a lot of Christian people from my religious days, and I don't think they're all bad people. I disagree fundamentally with a lot of like the beliefs they might have, but some of them, like most of them, are just really nice. They just have a supernatural aspect to them that I just don't share. And actually, a lot of the more liberal Christians actually enjoy the comics that I do because to them, I'm pointing out the same hypocrisy that they don't like within their own faith. I guess I don't see myself as doing like activism against my faith. For me, it's like personal processing of myself and arguments that are given to me either by my family or other people I care about. I'm like, well, why don't I disagree? Well, why don't I agree with that? I don't want it to be quite so antagonistic, even though it might come off that way sometimes.
Well, somebody pointed out Sal. We've got somebody in the chat. His name is Sal. Easism Works. He's also an artist, and man, his stuff just blows. I don't want to fanboy on him because every time I see his work, I want to tell you though, he takes these, like you did a graffiti. Imagine you walked up and you graffiti like an entire like trash truck or something. You did it to a whole trash truck. Well, he does that to little trucks that are about like this big, man. It looks awesome. He graffitis them as if, and then I thought that's pretty cool. And then he's got pictures of him doing it to actual trucks, being contracted to make actual trucks. I mean, it's like, all right, so I fanboyed on his art, man. I'll tell you. Again, I could draw a little car as a kid. It was like 2 circles in a box. Stick figures with names under them. This is me with like.
But that's something you can do in webcomics because I said this on the last podcast with Andy, is that webcomics are the most accessible art form, I think, because there's no limit to how limited your art abilities are. Like if the writing is good and you understand just like a 4-panel or a 3-panel box format, which is pretty basic once you get the hang of it, like mostly it's writing. I think it's like people respond more to writing than art, especially on the internet. So like some webcomics beautifully drawn and the writing is very good, but it's too wordy. Yeah. This is sometimes my problem. It's like it's too wordy. So I don't know. I
find that a lot. It is its own particular art form, isn't it? And you're right.
Very different.
In terms of doing comics, at least from what I've seen, it's similar to script writing in the fact that you want to see white on the page. You want to see less. You want to be able to. It's like, if I'm going to sound a little wankerish right now. It's more like poetry. Thank you. That's the common theme, I guess, for this entire episode of the Daily Morning Atheist Show.
I feel like that's what all of these are. We're all just circle jerking here.
Circle jerking in some kind of weird, but not Jerry Falwell Jr. kind of way. And I'm sorry, it's taken me like maybe 20 minutes.
Admire your restraint.
Thank you. Jerry Falwell Jr. in the corner, fapping away while the pool boy is railing his wife.
Wait. Hold on. I just real quick. I'm sorry. I'm still I got all the tech gremlins about one part. I got to get the tech gremlins out about the alerts and all that. Sorry about that. Thank you, Atheist Pastor, for the $5 of support, Australian dollars to this channel for the support. He says Green Lantern #3 is great. The cover story has Hal Jordan arresting God for crimes against humanity. I love that. I want to make a note about that right there. I had no clue. Making a note. Thank you, Chris, for that and for the super chat. Now, because I know #3, he says Green Lantern #3.
Oh, I found it.
Yeah,
You're under
awesome.
arrest. Oh, this is great.
So I just thank you for that. I'll try to work up something now, Andy, because I know we're going to go about this Jerry Falwell Jr. guy. That was a great joke. I loved it. And now we can go on Jerry Falwell Jr. and go. Sorry to ruin your thing.
Oh, no. So now I'm looking at Green Lantern arresting God too.
I need to look at that.
Pretty cool.
I'm going to share that.
You know, for those of you who haven't been connected to the internet at all over the last maybe 6 months, there's this story that's been brewing for a while. I was watching a Samantha Bee doing a 5-minute bit on it on her show from August of 2019. And it turns out our friend, Jerry Falwell Jr., once head of, see, there's a lot of puns I'm not going to go with right now, in charge of Liberty University.
Sorry, you're a bad man.
As basically beginning into this weird cuck kind of threesome with Pool Boy, whose last name is Grand, right?
Is it really?
It is. The dude's last name is Grand, which is
really.
I want to watch him screw my wife.
right. And this has been going on for years. Supposedly, this has been going on for years, and it is blowing up in the news right now with everything else that's blowing up in the news because it's 2020, and this could be the scandal that destroys the Falwell dynasty, which is a crying freaking shame.
Falls well that ends well.
Oh,
Terrible. I tell you what I think is weird about this story, because if he wasn't like the Liberty guy, if he wasn't like the Puritan, like this wouldn't be news. No one would care.
Yeah,
it would be fine. But because he's presented as such like this puritanical person and against like all these alternative lifestyles, like, no, you can't do that, it's all bad, you should be whatever. It's like, had you just not had that position, none of this would have fallen under scrutiny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Being part of yeah. They're just this is just so exemplary of the Christian evangelicals. Yeah. It's like if they're standing up and they're pointing at something and going, that is bad, you can almost guarantee they're doing it when you're not watching. I mean, this is, and he is just a perfect example. He exemplifies that perfectly. A matter of fact, that kind of spills over into the whole Republican blah blah blah. I don't want to get into politics anymore.
Jerry Falwell Jr. was one of the first evangelicals out for Trump. I mean, you cannot separate
you're right
Jerry
again.
Falwell. You cannot separate Jerry Falwell Jr. from Donald J.
True.
Trump.
He
really did, Reverend Falwell really did corral evangelicals to support Trump in 2016.
I saw an image of Donald Trump meeting Grant with Falwell. So, yeah,
I'm holding out for the Dennis Prager BDSM tapes.
Wow, mind completely blown. That would be so hot. I tell you.
Just a gag ball to shut him up,
Can we get that in 3D? I'm just nobody wants that in 3D.
And you're right about this, Chris, about if Falwell wasn't running a university where you couldn't where co-eds couldn't even physically kiss. It wouldn't be such a scandal. But this guy is such a huge dick, a faith-based dick, that this is a huge scandal and will hopefully destroy this man's career.
Yeah,
but maybe not, because of the whole forgiveness thing, which is this is actually one thing. I don't know if we can find some sort of marriage between like okay, if you do the crime, you can do the punishment, but you can forgive to get back. Like, I don't think that's a terrible policy. I think the way it's gone about in a lot of Christian circles is like it excuses too much.
Yeah.
And it allows like the idea of like, because we talk about cancel culture a lot on the internet and this whole thing, like on everyone's going crazy. But I mean, there is something to like, okay, if you do something wrong, you pay for it.
Yeah.
And how do you reintegrate, or are you forever, you can never do anything and you're a pariah forever, like the Scarlet Letter, which is very puritanical.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I believe in penance. Call me, I'm just an old Baptist boy, basically. Brought up, Union Baptist, mind you, not the treasonous Southern Baptists. I just want to qualify that. But I believe in penance. I believe in suffering. If you did something wrong, you should, if you really want to be back in the public's good graces, there should be a road back. Like Louis C.K.
Yeah.
If there was a person with a cattle prod, like in between every single laugh, just like prodding him in the genitals, sure, why not? Come back in, do your comedy special.
Well, real quick, I want to point out that the Godless Granny here mentioned something that they used to have 3-second limits on hugs.
Yeah.
This is the kind of people that they have, and now to have him, I'm about forgiveness too. Oops, let me do this. I'm about forgiveness too. Sure, if you've done something, you should, we've seen people come on and do their little mea culpas and go on to have successful lives and do fine. I mean, that's fine. Look at Robert Downey Jr. He's a great example of somebody who, I can see that. It's repeat offenders that you have problems. But Robert Downey Jr. wasn't a heavy critic and didn't instigate punishment of people who committed his crimes that he was actually speaking out against and then doing in the background. He didn't do that to other people. This guy did.
I want to hear what Jonathan had to say. You were about to say something, Jonathan.
Oh, I said like we could rehabilitate Louis C.K. by putting him in a room and I can jerk off at him.
There you go.
Oh yeah,
the punishment should fit the crime, and the whole time he's gonna be like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "I'm nobody."
So what would be the punishment for this crime of the sin of Jerry Falwell Jr.?
If he actually goes, I mean, it won't happen, but I mean, the whole idea, if he were to just say, "Look, what I did between myself and my wife and our pool boy named Grand," God, that's a hot name, is fine because it was consensual, and we're going to change the rules regarding sexuality, like in our covenants that we have to sign and all these other things. Sorry, it wasn't a joke answer. That was, but I mean, literally, if he actually took a turnaround and said, I see what I've said was harmful to other people, and I wasn't following my own advice. And rather than like self-flagellating and saying, I will never watch Grand do that to my wife ever again, please forgive me. Like, no, do it if you want. But stop condemning other people for their own sexual proclivities if it's consensual.
Yep.
My understanding of what he did is actually the opposite of what you just said. At first he came out and it was like, he's busted, everything's in trouble. And then he came out and he said that his excuse deal now is that she had a relationship he didn't know about or something, and he wasn't part of, and he was innocent. And then so he quit from the university, and now he's retracted that resignation. Okay. So now it's kind of turning around to I did not have sex with that woman, but unlike that, it was with Clinton, because back then everybody's like, and they did it anyway. Nowadays, the whole right will just go, oh, it didn't really happen. It didn't happen. Yeah. He didn't do this. That's not true. So I'm just pointing out he's already done the opposite of what you said.
Or the other thing I guess he could do is he could rent Grand out to Ben Shapiro's wife, who's a doctor.
There you go. I could need it.
That could fix it.
Yeah, that would be a good start.
That's what we're doing here on the Daily Atheist Morning Show. We are solving problems.
We're solving all the problems.
Which problems? All the problems. Yeah. So what? So do you also do stand up? Is that what I heard? You're not just a comic artist, but you also do stand up. Can you tell us about that? What got you into that?
I started doing this when I was in South Korea, weirdly.
Oddly. Where no one understood you. Got it. That's how I do it too.
Yeah, no, I was like overseas and the pressure was off, and I'd always wanted to do it. I had done like a talent show once or twice in high school or whatever. It was terrible. It was an awful comic. It was just the worst. But then like I was always there, and like because I was a big fan of stand up at the time and growing up, listened to a lot of albums from back in the day, and they left a big impression on me. And I always admired people who are able to just get up on a stage by themselves and captivate an audience with just humor. And like that was just sort of a cool thing. My best buddy, when we were in Korea, he says, "Hey, I've always wanted to do comedy, and you seem like someone who would, you know, have fun with that. There's an open mic in I think it was Bundang. Doesn't matter. You're not going to go." And he says, "Hey, there's an open mic. Let's take the bus and we'll go." And since doing that, I mean, it wasn't good for the first, you know, while. I feel like I'm sort of falling into it now, and I'm like, all right, it makes sense. But I love the people who do comedy. Like I felt like my whole life I couldn't find my people. Like I tried being a theater kid for a while. I'm like, you're not my people. I don't understand this wavelength you guys are on. I'm not this person. And then like everything else, and then like artists are very like by themselves a lot. Like if you want to hang out with painters and cartoonists, it's not the most social group all the time. And then something about comedians was like, you are my people. And so sort of like what Doug Stanhope would say is I could quit comedy, but I could never quit comedians.
Yeah. I have to ask you, what's the wavelength difference between theater kids and comedians? What's the tangible difference in the cultures?
Before I do this, are any of you guys theater kids?
No.
Okay, so theater kids will just be annoying at a Denny's. Comedians will get thrown out of a bar for starting a fight. I don't know. There's like a different edge to them.
Dude, that is so true. That is so true.
But I felt like with theater kids, like a lot of my friends are into theater, and I think they're really fun people. I like them, but there's always like you're playing constantly, or improv people are like this too sometimes. Like where you're always we're doing a bit or we're doing a scene together and we're building this thing. And I felt like with comedians, a lot of the jokes are just a part of their personality and they just come out. And there's like, it's a different wall that's up. And I guess it's a wall that's more familiar to me. It's not like a mask of everything's fine. It's a mask of I'm pretending like I know I'm on fire and I'm okay with it.
Wow.
Which is, I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean it does. I mean, I'm acquainted with both groups, so the analogy of comedians getting thrown out of bars for getting into a fight, and theater people being at a Denny's at 1 o'clock in the morning, let's say, and just being irritating. I can see some truth in that.
Hey, Jonathan, did you change? Have you embraced this new world with the cooties? Are you doing more online stand-up? Like Leanne Lord, she's my Saturday co-host over on Spy Sci-Fi, and she does lots of stand-up online.
I won't do online comedy. I feel like you can do something funny online, but you can't do stand-up. It's not the proper venue in my mind. You have to adapt the art form and do it a little differently.
Yeah.
Like imagine trying to adapt a TikTok video to the stage. Like it doesn't work. Like TikTok is TikTok, the stage is the stage. So for me, I'm kind of laying low and just waiting for this whole thing to be over. I've done maybe 3 or 4 shows since the pandemic, and everyone has been very like clinical, like where they watch the thing. And I think it's all good. They're taking precautions. I would not do the shows otherwise. But I don't want to do it online. I feel like it's not right. So I'm focusing more on cartooning these days.
I have found a buddy of mine, Dennis, who's I think been on this show. Has been on my show a bunch of times. He's a Boston guy. Yeah. Dennis, he's a good guy, Boston-based guy. He was hosting a Zoom show of comedians, and what they did was that they kept their mics on. They didn't, so you could actually hear the other comedians laugh at the person who's performing jokes. So instead of just like telling jokes into the void, there is actually laughter going on at the right time.
Right. Oh, interesting. That's the first one I saw with Leanne was like that, but they did that with the audience. They had a Zoom meeting of 100 people. There was about 60 of us there, but they could have had up to 100. And they had all us viewers, not just the other comedians, us viewers, the audio was on. So when we laughed, the comedian heard it. So I don't know how that went. I haven't seen them do that since. But
yeah. But just simply telling jokes into the void, that's just, I think that's sad.
Yeah. I mean, it's a metaphor for what the art form is normally, but.
Right.
True enough.
Yeah.
Well, I can understand the difference. When I first met Sam, me and Sam kind of got into an argument because Sam has a very kind of a look down view on people who do comedy on the internet. Rather than just going, I don't do it, we just kind of got into an argument, and I kind of didn't. But now I'm trying. I myself have run into a different thing where it's just different, and there's nothing different. I'm trying to do scripted videos for sci-fi reviews. I just can't say there's no personality, there's no life there. But if I turn on and stream it live, here I am, man, and I'm just going, and I'm like, this sucks, and don't watch this, and this sucks, and I'm fun to watch. I like watching me. But if I try to script it, it's not the same. It's just not the. So I could understand the difference between trying to do live comedy and what you're talking about, doing it in the void. It's the same, but it's different.
Here's a question, Jonathan. Have you gotten into arguments with people about what is comedy?
Not me personally. I don't know. I know there are arguments around me, like, because there's different schools of thought on it, and even like when I used to do improv back in the day, embarrassingly, and I remember there was definite debates there that I was a part of, where like, oh, it should be more about the scene, it should be more slow, or it should be more and I was like, I just want to be fun. I want it to be fun. Like, and like the group I was doing, like we'd like to gags and do games and stuff because we didn't care about the scene. As far as comedy goes, I can't think of a specific one other than like you see someone who's bad, you're like, I don't think that was comedy.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific mentors or comedic heroes that you followed?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I mean, most of my mentors, I don't think I emulate in the slightest. Like I might love Dave Chappelle, but I don't. There's nothing about my material that's anything like what he does. Like he's just something to aspire to. Like Bill Burr is another one. I still put Louis C.K. up there, and I like Patton Oswalt. And there's a bunch of new guys I've been watching, like Sam Morril and what was the guy I watched recently? There's a lot of really good ones. Like Maria Bamford is great. Yeah. Just for like she's brilliant with like voices and stuff, and like her. And she did something that I thought was revolutionary, was when she was living with her parents and she had the Maria Bamford show that she filmed all by herself, and she played every member of her family, and it was brilliant and super funny. And then one of her specials was her just doing her like 1 hour special to her parents on a couch. Like, we're talking about talking into the void. Like, that was a perfect example of how you adapt comedy to a weird situation that is not ideal for comedy. And like, I will say that worked amazingly well because it was her. Yeah. I don't know if everyone could do that.
I have a question for you from the chat, Jonathan, real quick. Miss Cindy Plaza wants to know, imagine aliens come to Earth tomorrow and they didn't know what humor is. How would you explain it to them?
I'll say, a guy named Jerry Falwell Jr. See? No.
It worked for me.
I don't know. Like, if I wanted to explain what comedy was, I don't know if I'd go to stand-up comedy first, because that's not really a universal thing. Like, I've done comedy in several countries, and not every culture has a history of comedy. So actually, what I would do for aliens, I'd probably show them like a slapstick silent film like Chaplin or Keats. Because I think that's a little bit more understandable. Like, it's not, you don't have to, rely on references and things and cultural ticks and quirks.
I think that's a brilliant. I think that's a brilliant answer. I just saw a Buster Keaton double feature. My girlfriend and I rented out independent theater down the street from us in Cambridge, and we saw. Oh, what were the two films? It was The General, which turned out to be this weird birth of a nation. Every one of these conversations I get in with another comedian, we just kind of like go into this kind of circle of autism and geekdom. Yes, The General, it's like very pro-Confederate. Brilliant movie, though.
Yeah, I'll say not really that Confederate, because he doesn't care about the war. He just wants to train and the girl. That's his only motivation. He just happens to be living in the South, so the people he ends up helping are the Confederates. That's how I justify it in my head. I'm like, he's not a Confederate. He's a train man.
He's just but showing aliens some kind of physical comedy like that would be a nice way of, oh, hey, Amy Basile, my girlfriend, is actually in the chat right now. Hello, Amy.
Well, see, one of the things about the whole deal is that it's complicated because it varies from situation to situation, from term to term. The actual question was, and they don't know what humor is. And see, we said humor, and because humor, comedy, comics, comedians, all of that is so different and diverse, we just fall into one, right? It's I think that would be very hard if they didn't already know. Guys, you ain't got no Robin Williams in your society. What the hell's wrong with you?
I would say that it's a reversal of expectations, or the expectations are suddenly changed, unexpectedly changed. So I would ask them, do you have any knowledge of shitty stage magic? Do you have any experience of that? Well, it's kind of like magic, but you go
unfortunate magic.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Like I guess I would define it very similarly. It's a subversion of expectation.
Yeah.
But because that could be tragedy, it's a choice to laugh rather than cry at the situation, like depending on what it's happening. It's kind of like the comedy is a long shot, tragedy is a close up, or like the Mel Brooks quote, or tragedy is when I cut my finger. Comedy is when you walk into an open manhole and die. It is situational.
You all right, Andy?
Bye.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. Too bad he wasn't drinking anything. I love making him spit all over the computer.
I'll wait. Next time I get him.
That's great, dude. That's fantastic.
Excellent. So when was the last show you did? Was it? And I guess it slowed your stuff down, right?
I haven't done it in maybe a couple weeks. A couple weeks ago, I had like a weekend where I did 3 shows in a row, and it was great. Every show was fantastic. The audience was wonderful. They were very small, but they were there for comedy, and it was nice to get back.
We don't shame short people here. Sorry,
they're fine. They're fine.
I see what you did there.
You did all get my jokes.
Gotcha. You got some more coming up? Have you scheduled anything?
No,
not yet, huh?
No,
I ask you if you've had a show in a while, and you're like, oh, not in a while, like 2 or 3 weeks. When I ask that question, usually people refer to things like BC, before cooties. So 2 or 3 weeks isn't that bad.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I mean, if you do comedy, the whole thing is like you have to. I think Bill Burr talks about this. Like, you really got to do it every day, and he feels like he hasn't done it in a while if he skips a week.
Yeah.
If he's on vacation for a week, it's like, oh gosh, what in your back? It is a muscle that you do have to maintain, and I think it's more than a muscle. It's kind of a lifestyle after a while, because it is like, it's gigs, it's a lot of talking and networking, which is the stuff I hate. I hate having to like be on with other people off stage. I'm like, leave me alone, man. I don't want to go home.
I hear what you're saying. I'm a horrible networker in person. It's like, oh, small talk? Oh, is that what we're doing? I'm not very good at that at all.
Yeah, I hate it.
And
Jonathan, you're up in Montreal. What's the situation? What's the situation? See, Chris, we're vibing. We're on the same wavelength.
Mm-hmm.
How's the apocalypse?
Overcast with some wind.
Some wind?
Wind?
Gotcha.
Windy.
But it's like negative 70 up there, isn't it? I mean, it's summer, so it's nice and warm.
Oh, it's lovely.
Canada,
honestly, Montreal is one of the greatest cities in the world for like a solid 2 months straight.
2 whole months.
Yeah. Time. It's okay. It's okay
to the cold. It's okay to. That's the whole deal, man. We would move to. Oh man, I tell you, moving to Canada has been an option. That's an option. I would, but it's too cold. It's too cold. I would be a snowback.
I will say,
but it's still too cold.
The winter is the hardest thing, and I grew up in upstate New York. But the thing is, I also lived in LA for 5 years, and that broke me. And it made me realize, oh, humans don't need snow. We don't.
No.
It's not human weather.
It isn't. It isn't. It's brutal. That's what it is.
But you can't have too much sunshine, because then you turn into Florida. Florida is what happens when you give white people too much sunshine.
Yeah. Starts melting the brain pan in there. Things start to boil about. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Europeans were not designed for that, my friend.
No, not at all. Is there a lockdown still going on up there? Are bars open? What's the situation?
No. It's not really a lockdown anymore. I think more like things are kind of opening up slowly. Like you can go to a restaurant, you got to wear a mask when you step in, but once you sit in your booth, you can take it off and you can eat. But like they don't let everybody in. It's like limited, and not every restaurant is open.
Right.
And not every restaurant will let you sit down. So my big thing, like my favorite place in the world is a restaurant. I love restaurants so much, and Montreal is some of the best restaurants in the world. So that was like the hardest thing to get over for the first couple months of not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So when they finally started to open up, it was like I have to go and support my boys.
I'm a big fan of diners.
Oh God, diners, man.
Yeah.
I
See,
love
I work from home. I've worked from home for a long time. I had a job there for a while where I went and did nerding at other places, but most of the time it was from home. And starting in February, I started working from home, doing the thing, or being at home all the time. So just before everybody else got quarantined, so it's already for me, you know. And my deal was the same. It was restaurants. I didn't mind staying home for months on end, as long as, you know, I got to go out and eat 2 or 3 times a week. You know, I could go sit down at this restaurant and chill and have a good time and go home. And then that changed, and now it's which parking lot do we want to go sit and eat in? Do we sit in that parking lot and eat, or do we go sit in that parking lot and eat? I have not eaten in a restaurant in half a year now.
I've done some patio restauranting, you know, sitting on patios, and somehow the fear, you know, it doesn't matter how good the beer is or the food is, I still have maybe it's just my anxiety disorder, I don't know, but I do seem to be overly concerned with the pandemic, if that's possible to be overly concerned about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been, I guess, approaching the pandemic. Like I do all the stuff you're supposed to do: social distance, wear the mask, wash your hands, do the Purells when you go into the building. But I guess I've had the attitude where it's like cancer. Probably I will get it at some point, and there's really nothing I can do. So it's a little bit fatalistic, but I'm like, maybe I'll get COVID and it will wipe me out, or maybe I'll be fine, or maybe I've already had it. I don't know, but I really need a souvlaki pita right now.
Well, at least when you get it, you won't be surprised. You'll be like, damn, I knew I was going to get that. But if you don't get it and you survive to the vaccine, then you'll be like, damn, I didn't get it. It's going to be wrong.
I'll say the best thing about being indoctrinated with religion, it instills you with such an intense guilt that whatever bad thing happens to you, you're like, I probably deserve that, though.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because that's a difference with me coming from a Baptist background. When something bad happens to somebody else, I go, they probably deserve it.
See? You don't ever put that on yourself?
Being a Baptist, my friend, I don't know if you know anything about my people. I don't know if you know the rules or what my people are all about. We are all about projecting that shit onto everybody else.
Yeah. We've got a comment here in the chat from Native Atheist where he says they are saying the virus is getting less aggressive. I've heard, my wife is a nurse and she hears things. Of course, we know how the variables are, so many variables, but heard that it's one of those deals where the deadlier strains are dying off because they kill off the people before they can be spread to other people, because they're too effective in what they do, and the milder strains are the ones that are left surviving. Essentially, I think that's essentially the same thing he's saying there. The less aggressive. It's not that the virus is getting less aggressive. It's just that the less aggressive strains of the virus are the only ones that are surviving, and the more aggressive ones are the ones that are dying off. However, because of the nature of viruses, for them to mutate, it wouldn't be a big surprise for it to get ultra ugly again, to mutate somewhere and get ultra ugly again. So just kind of.
I feel that I would probably get the passive aggressive form of COVID-19.
It's like cough, I guess.
Maybe. Maybe I have to go to the hospital.
Maybe. You know, I've heard some people who have it, who get it to where all they do is lose their sense of smell and taste. And
that's pretty rough, though. Lose your sense of smell and taste.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
I love restaurants.
Yeah, see, for somebody, yeah. But for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you live. See, that's one of the keys.
Oh, you live. Well, that's the important part. I imagine.
Yeah.
Is it living?
If you're into that kind of thing.
But see, that's the question, Jonathan. Is it living if you can't smell or taste anything?
This is, I think, probably the best argument the anti-maskers have, is that living in fear, is it really living? And like we would argue, well, it's not really living in fear. It's just living in precaution for ourselves and for our neighbors until this, gets figured out. But their whole attitude of just like, look, we don't want to live like this. I'm like, yeah, none of us do. So we agree, but we have to, at least for the time being.
I'm just going to speak for all of us people, all of the people who have anxiety disorders. And, I don't think you should shame us for living in fear.
No. If you have fear, it's what you got.
You got to own it and run with it everywhere. Flee.
Yeah.
Well, also, it's a sort of thing that's what we were talking about is a pretty good analogy for it. Oh, I don't want to, living without my sense of smell for 2 weeks is like death, and therefore I just don't want to have. And then the maskers who can't seem to, even though we both really know, despite the joke, we know that after that 2 weeks you get your sense of smell and taste back, and you live, and you get to go on and do other things. But the way they're taking it with their mask is not that way. We're really going, listen, people, if we just all mask up, all quarantine, all do as best we could for a few months, we'd really be able to put a stifle on this. They fight that. And that's kind of the difference.
From what I've been able to gather from my family members and other people who I'm still in contact with, and that fear is that like anything with masks is associated with government overreach. So their attitude is like, oh, the Democratic governors are taking over, and they're trying to take away your rights and control you and mark you. And they kind of view it as kind of like a mark of a beast type thing, like almost not quite revelations, but border there. They're like, well, once this happens, then who knows what they'll ask you to do. I'm like, yeah, did you wear a shirt to the McDonald's?
Right?
Did you buckle your safety belt? Like we already subscribe to like an infinite number of things that we might say are impositions on us, but not really. They're just courtesies. Right. So like the fact that people have chosen this is the hill we're going to die on and ignore all the other actual problems in the world. Just like, I mean, it really is like you're in a little bubble where like this is the only thing that matters to you.
Yeah.
You're not a victim of police violence, so that's not a thing. You don't understand anyone else's opinion if they're a different religion and they're being persecuted. But as soon as someone says you have to wear a mask for your safety and for the safety of others, everyone becomes like a flat earther and starts sharing like conspiracy theories. It's so chaotic.
Right. It's the same 20% of the population here in the States that don't believe in evolution. Like really don't believe in evolution.
Yeah, well, they're the best case for it not being real.
Flat earthers.
Just they have to evolve.
Well said. Yeah. Well, I'm going to start wrapping things up. We've almost reached the hour. I want to give Andy some time. Andy, what do you got going on this week, buddy? You got anything else?
I have Steve Hill, Satanist extraordinaire of the Satanic Temple, coming on my show Wednesday. That's tomorrow. Doing that, a live show at 11 a.m. You got some questions about Satan? Then you should join us. He is a advocate too. He's been doing a lot of Black Lives Matter work out there in Cali. Great guy. He's a comedian too.
Small world.
So small world, right? I also have a clip premiering tonight from our conversation with Seth Andrews, where Seth Andrews was talking, Chris, about how do you change people's minds. And so it's a short 6-minute clip or so, but I thought it would be worthy because I think as atheists, as professional atheists, as horrible as that sounds, part of our job is to change other people's minds. And so
it might seem that way.
It might seem that way. Yeah. So I'm just not preaching to the choir. So that's what I have going on. And I have comedian Nathan Timmel coming on Friday too. and at 11 a.m. on Friday. So we're going to just be talking about the apocalypse and joking around.
Gotcha. That's wonderful. Jonathan, what do you got coming up? You got anything new coming out, or?
I'm just working on more comics. I think now is a great time to get into Barb because it's actually turning into a story again. So I would say check it out on Webtoon. Start at the beginning, and if it pleases you, read through the whole thing. We're coming towards some sort of end. I don't know if I'm going to be doing Barb for that much longer in the future. We'll see. I might slow down a bit and work on a graphic novel project that I've been kicking around and writing. We'll see if that happens. And then check out Blinky and Sal on Big Insane Happy or Pathos Non-Religious. Follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, all Big Insane Happy. I'm always looking for more people to enjoy my stuff.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Well, tomorrow I'm going to have Easism from Sal from Easism Works. He's going to be on the show. And I think we're also going to have John Funk and Ease, and we're going to talk some cannabis and learn some stuff about cannabis for Weed Wednesday. And then, of course, I'm also doing the I Spy Sci-Fi review channel. So if you guys aren't subscribed to that, there's links below. Go over there and subscribe to my I Spy Sci-Fi review channel. I'm dropping this week. I'm doing some Picard and the Lower Decks. Lower Decks is hard. I'm having a hard time with the Lower Decks. Man, that's rough.
I couldn't get past the trailer.
I tell you, it's Rick and Morty meets Star Trek.
Is it good?
No, it's not good. It's unfortunate. Unfortunate.
I like Rick and Morty, but
I like Rick and Morty too.
Well, you might see, that's the whole deal, and that's fine. Rick and Morty is fine. Rick and Morty is over here is fine. Star Trek is over here is fine. I don't want them together. I want just Star Trek. I can get how if you might be a lover of Rick and Morty, but like it opens with this one scene, this guy, I thought it opened pretty good. And they've got this character, he's doing this, he's an ensign, work in a closet rehearsing a captain's log. Because that's someday he wants to be a captain. I thought that was kind of cool that he was doing that. And then he gets interrupted by this other ensign who's a drunk. She's sitting out there drinking and she's doing all this other stuff and flinging shit around. She ends up cutting him in the leg with a bat lift. I'm like, man, this is just dumb. It's just slapstick. And what it is like every second on the screen, they're trying to make you laugh. And they're throwing everything they've got at it to make you laugh. And I was kind of hoping, I was like, man, I hope this is before the show. I already knew it was silly. I was hoping before the show, I'm hoping this is for kids and this is their outreach for kids, and that's what they're going to be. And the show starts and it goes, warning, TV 14 for violence and language. And I was like, oh, son of a bitch. Yep. And then it opened with that. She's one of the main characters is drunk. She's drunk, very opening scene, and she's acting stupid. And then they go on. It's just dumb, bro. It's not my thumbnail has an image of Gene Roddenberry down here, and it says, to hell with this guy, and it has a big arrow pointing at him. I mean, it is most unfortunate. It is. And I have to watch that stuff.
Barb is family friendly.
What's that?
Barb is family friendly.
Barb is family friendly.
You can watch, your kids could read it, and it'd be great.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, it's still framed cartoon violence, right? So
it's not. There's nothing's.
Well, one of the things, and this is what I mentioned in my thing that it gets just before the introduction. It goes through that thing, and she cuts him with the bat lift. Something I've never had to say before, never seen before that I remember in Star Trek was blood splatter. Arterial spray. Never seen that in Star Trek before. You will if you watch this show, and it sucks. It's like a cartoon. It starts out right with that. I mean, it goes for the base of humor, and it fails half the time. Half the time, you're like, yeah, I see what you're trying to do. Didn't work.
Bringing endorsement.
Comedy is hard, and trying to fit comedy into a pre-existing show that wasn't always funny into a dramatic show. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough to do.
Yeah. True enough. Well, all right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you, guys. Thank you. It was nice meeting you, Jonathan. Thank you for having me.
This is always fun. This is always fun.
And starting next week, I'm gonna have Andy Hall joining me as a regular co-host. It's gonna be me and Andy, and then our co-host who come on like Monday, Oz, the co-host, he'll still be here. So it'll be me, Andy, and Oz for Monday. That kind of thing. We're working on stuff, developing things. So check it out, that stuff out. All right. Thank you to everybody in the damn nation. You guys all are wonderful. Hey, Paul, nice to see you there. Thank you all for joining us today. All the people who watch on YouTube and the people who listen on the Daily Atheist Morning Show podcast. You have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.
Take care, all.